There's a lot of things we take for granted in the internet age, and one such thing is readily having access to countless people's perspectives on any given topic. But instead of talking about the actually important uses of this, I'm going to talk about the ability to know whether a game or movie is good or not. There's been plenty of stories related to online reviews that I've wanted to cover, even if they weren't necessarily suited for a full video. So this video serves as a way to explore the various fields of online reviews with 4 stories from 4 different review websites. I don't have any fancy segues for this, so I'm just going to cut to a title card mid-sentence.
It's The Legend of Zelda and it's really rad!
Let's start with the professionals, the ones who make a living reviewing games. In particular, I'm interested in the specific type of backlash that professional game reviewers receive solely for not rating a game high enough, sometimes when the game in question still got a positive score. And while there's a bunch of reviews with this type of backlash that would be interesting to talk about, I'm going to talk about one of the earliest ones to spark a controversy. GameSpot's review of The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. It's important to know that Twilight Princess is a strong contender for the most anticipated game of all time. It came from a highly regarded series in general, its darker aesthetic appealed to older fans, and it was also a launch title for the Wii. So Zelda fans were bracing for 10 out of 10s across the board, and when the review scores were coming in, that seemed to be the case. But GameSpot was there to throw a wrench into that plan with a truly low review score, an 8.8 out of 10. And so, this review caused waves of outrage across the 2006 internet. While it's hard to judge the exact scale because of how different the 2006 internet is from that of today, the thread discussing the review on GameSpot's forum should point a pretty good picture. The very first post in this thread was OP begging people to be nice, but if that actually worked, I wouldn't be talking about this thread right now. There were many posts that were absolutely furious at GameSpot. One person used a really poor taste analogy, and it took 35 posts for someone to actually discuss one of the points made by the review instead of just looking at the score. And that's just the first page. Now, this isn't to say that there aren't any legitimate criticisms you can levy against a review, although I haven't played the game in question, so I can't assess the accuracy of the reviewer's points. But you know who else hasn't played Twilight Princess? The overwhelming majority of people in the thread. You see, GameSpot's review came out before Twilight Princess was even released to the public, and 28 out of the thread's 32 pages were in the same boat. So the reactions to GameSpot's Twilight Princess review weren't from the perspective of people who played the game and had reasons to disagree with it. They were from the perspective of people who had no basis to argue against any points and were obsessively defending a game they haven't played yet. While it's unlikely that GameSpot's Twilight Princess review was the first instance of an online review receiving this type of backlash, it was the first notable one. TV Tropes coined the term 8.8 to describe the specific pattern of fandom reaction to reviews, although said website currently does not use the 8.8 trope anymore. So clearly, the internet learned a valuable lesson about the dangers of hype culture. Maybe the professional reviewers aren't your cup of tea. Maybe you need to hear something from the common people instead. Well, that's where Letterboxd comes in. Letterboxd is a website where you can log and review all the films you've seen. And since there's no limits to who can create an account and what they can post, this is a website where only the most insightful of opinions on films can thrive. This section of the video is dedicated to the truly insightful discussion of a true piece of art, 1951's Bedtime for Bonzo. The plot of this film centers around a college professor trying to raise a chimpanzee as his own child, causing hijinks to ensue. But the actual contents of this cinematic masterpiece are irrelevant, because what matters instead is the actor who plays the film's protagonist, Ronald Reagan. Yes, the Ronald Reagan, a US president with a squeaky clean reputation and no controversy whatsoever. Here's some reviews that show just how uncontroversial he is. Ronald Reagan sucks and so does this film. A stunningly dull movie. After seeing Phenomena and its Wonder Champ, this comes off as even more dull. Ronald Reagan's performance in this is the worst thing he's ever done, aside from Iran-Contra, and letting the AIDS crisis happen by inaction, and laughing about it, and firing striking air traffic controllers. And about as effective as a movie as Trickle-Down Economics is as an economic system, 1.5 out of 5 stars. When will you people learn you simply cannot constrain the classical chimp grind set within the chains of the nuclear family unit? And then there's this last one that's just someone who copied and pasted the Britannica article on the Iran-Contra affair.
How about I push you off this roof and break the arm you just got back?
But simply just liking and reviewing pieces of media isn't the only purpose of websites like Letterboxd, because some people are there for glory. On MyAnimeList, a similar website but for anime, there's 2 important lists. The list of anime that the most users have watched, and the list of anime with the highest average scores. And the reigning champion at the top of the latter list is Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. This should come as no surprise, seeing as how Brotherhood is simultaneously well regarded enough to constantly get 10 out of 10 scores, large enough for scores of people who drop the series early to not count account and popular enough to be protected from review bombing. However, just because FMA Brotherhood is at the top, that doesn't mean it hasn't had to defend its title. Brotherhood first made it to the top spot in July of 2010, but in April of the following year, it would get beaten out by another anime, Gintama Apostrophe. Gintama Apostrophe would keep its title for an impressive time span of 2 years, but Brotherhood would return the favor in May of 2013, becoming the champion again. Brotherhood kept this title for 3 years, with only one small interruption when Gintama's circle symbol finished airing and took the top spot before losing its title in less than a day. Then, in September of 2016, Brotherhood would finally meet its match, the critically acclaimed film Your Name. Your Name would hold this title for almost a year before it got beaten out by a Monogatari season, and then in turn, said Monogatari season was beaten by FMA Brotherhood yet again. Brotherhood would continue to maintain this reign for approximately 2.5 years, with only 2 exceptions. First, there was one time where it was briefly challenged by a Gintama season yet again, only for said season to quickly get defeated yet again. And second, in August of 2019, there was a bug in MyAnimeList system that caused Brotherhood's score to rapidly drop, resulting in Attack on Titan Season 3 Part 2 becoming the #1 anime instead, until the bug was fixed after a week. But here's where things get interesting. In the winter 2020 season, one anime would gather a lot of attention. This anime is called Interspecies Reviewers, and the premise is that it follows 3 characters who want to have sex with every fantasy species in their world and review their experiences. I haven't watched the series, so maybe there's some context I'm missing, but I have a good feeling this is a series you won't get much out of unless your sense of humor equates to having a porn addiction. So anyways, a stereotypical anime fan loved this series. Anime fans bombarded Interspecies Reviewers' mail page with 10 out of 10 scores and started a campaign to get it to the top spot. Interspecies Reviewers actually made it to the #2 spot and had a good chance of beating out Brotherhood with this momentum. But then Mal will conveniently recalculate scores worldwide, causing Interspecies Reviewers' score to plummet. So while Interspecies Reviewers' campaign ultimately failed, said campaign sent important messages to 2 different groups of Mal users. Fullmetal Alchemist fans learned to see their series' #1 spot as a sacred gift that they must defend at all costs. And fans of other series learned that with enough momentum, their series could potentially take the crown from Brotherhood. Within the span of February 2020 to the time of recording, at least 5 anime have managed to beat out Brotherhood: the final season of Fruits Basket, the 3rd season of Kaguya-sama Love is War, 2 seasons of Attack on Titan, and another Gintama season because of fucking course. Among these 5 contenders, there are 2 noticeable patterns. The fact that all 5 of them reached the top spot when they finished airing, allowing recency bias to come into play, and the fact that all 5 of them are sequels to pre-existing series, meaning that there's a greater ratio of viewers who passionately love the series enough to give it a 10. So the combination of these 2 factors would greatly increase the scores of the 5 series in question. But unfortunately, while these contenders may have had the ability to take the top spot, they didn't have the ability to keep said spot. FMA fans have a secret weapon up their sleeves: review bombing. Let's look at the score distributions for the first and final seasons of Fruits Basket as an example. Notice how, despite season 1 having more total viewers by virtue of being required to watch subsequent seasons, the final season has a greater amount of 1 out of 10 scores than season 1. Don't you think that's peculiar? Well, that's review bombing at work. Fullmetal Alchemist fans are giving 1 out of 10 scores to an anime they haven't seen in an attempt to lower the average score. And if you're thinking that fans of the contenders can just review bomb Brotherhood back in retaliation, that's simply not the case. FMA Brotherhood has significantly more viewers than any of its contenders, which means that the value of a 1 out of 10 is significantly less for it. If we make the generous assumption that there's an equal amount of review bombing on both sides, it should be clear that FMA fans are the ones who are actually benefiting from these clashes. So it seems unlikely that Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood will ever definitively lose its top spot, but only time will tell. Maybe, just one day, there will be a series capable of taking Brotherhood down once and for all.
Pizza's alright, but I'm just sick of the false advertising that comes along with it.
I assume most people here are familiar with him, but if you aren't, Reviewbrah runs a YouTube channel where he reviews fast food items in a suit and with an overly formal demeanor. His videos have this really comforting atmosphere to the point where I'm entertained watching him cover foods I don't even eat. He discusses fast food items as articulately as a scholar would discuss Shakespeare or Homer, even reviewing some things to the very decimal. I also love the bits where he's just eating quietly and leaving you in anticipation of whether or not he's out for the blood of the restaurant he's talking about. Overall, no elaborate editing, no over-the-top persona, just a guy who talks about the most mundane things in the most genuine and sincere way. But this isn't to say that he doesn't have a sense of humor. There's this one video where he starts out talking about how big of a Rick and Morty fan he is, only to drop the Watch Mojo top 10 anime plot twists of all time that he doesn't actually watch Rick and Morty.
Alright, I'm just gonna get this right out of the way. That was a sarcastic and... I'll tell you this, it doesn't bother me if you like Rick and Morty or don't. I've never actually watched it before. I don't do much television or streaming service viewing. I know I'm kinda old school.
However, my favorite review of his is the one where he was so disgusted with Little Caesars lying about the amount of pepperoni on his pizza that he took his Little Caesars tie and threw it on the ground, and then he had to pause the video to put on another tie because he didn't feel right without one. This review was such a powerful expose that Little Caesars was forced to issue an apology on their official YouTube channel. So, with how Reviewbrah conducts himself, it's no surprise that he has this mimetic presence online. The most iconic Reviewbrah meme is from his Popeye's Cheddar Biscuit Butterfly Shrimp review. He felt so betrayed by how one of his favorite items was ruined by Burger King that he uttered a soon-to-be classic phrase.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
This meme has gotten so widespread that Reviewbrah himself has recognized it several times and even gave Popeyes their redemption arc years later.
No, my disappointment is not immeasurable. There really isn't much disappointment, actually. I would say there is no disappointment. And my day isn't ruined either. No.
But while it's easy to see Reviewbrah as just a meme, I think there's an important takeaway from his videos. One of the more unfortunate things that the rise of the internet has inadvertently caused is this atmosphere where expressing genuine sincerity is discouraged, primarily due to cringe culture. Reviewbrah himself has been the target of cringe culture because some people look at him and write him off as weird. It's gotten to the point where some depraved individuals have legitimately used his likeness for death hoaxes as some kind of sick joke, as well as propaganda for truly bigoted causes. However, in spite of everything, Reviewbrah is still fully willing to be his genuine self in front of the camera. He might be a weirdo, but guess what? We're all weirdos deep down. He's willing to be himself and talk about things he loves without hiding his interests behind multiple layers of irony. And his large following is a testament to how much people can truly be touched by expressing complete sincerity. So, why not show some of that sincerity yourself?
What my motto is, what I always try to advocate on to others, is to treat others with kindness, respect, and dignity. That's what I always try to do every single day.